Yeah, sorry. Oh.
Yeah, it's definitely. Stay right here. Yeah, you got more. Yeah. No. Service. No.
Yeah. Everybody, let's put our phones away, put our laptops away. Let's get started. This is the time of the semester where people get a little squirrely. And so I'm going to be a little bit more direct about putting phones away and putting computers away and being on it, because as you could see with the handout last class, we're going to complicated places and I need to play disciplinarian and motivator. So I'll bring some more energy and try to make things dynamic, but I know where we're all at and I have sympathy for that. I mean, teachers catch it too. So one thing I want to say to start off into a lot more complexity built upon the understandings of the midterm, that it's really important to preload a little bit. So what I mean by that is this: what I'm doing is I'm giving you some information before I assign the chapter. So I'm giving you some information about chapter. Make sure I'm recording here, sorry. Oh, good. So I'm starting you out on this so you get a basic understanding, but please go read chapter 8 before next class so you have another way of understanding this material. And then furthermore, if you look in our learning module for chapter 7, there are 2 video assignments that I'm not assigning to you, but if you're having trouble, use these 2 Khan Academy sets. They have not only videos, but then problem sets to test yourself, to make sure you understand this information. And they'll be there for each chapter going forward as we build complexity upon complexity. So this is one of these real college classes where it's just not going over to another topic. We're building on top of another topic. So speaking of, let's take out what we did last class, the side that has a long run average total cost curve. Let's review that and then we add some complexity to that. You're welcome. Okay, away we go. So here we're looking at cost per unit over the quantity or scale. Here is our long run average total cost curve. This right here are diseconomies of scale. Here is the minimum we need to produce with possible costs. This is MES. Okay, I'm just making special note of that because that's where people get tripped up for some reason. So there's the minimum we need to produce to get to the lowest possible costs. Here are our economies of scale. Here are cost per unit, and this is our X inefficiency. Then in terms of the answers here, what's your answer? Increasing production will allow original divided by, yep, that's the right answer there. C. The next one. Perfect. D. What's the next one? I got A and D here. Okay, let's see. Like that one. No, as scale decreases, I'm throwing you on that one. So it is A. Right? You see what I'm doing there? Being a sneaky teacher. All right, what can 2 companies, and so a little bit more about this. Here are 2 companies, A and B. What might be advantageous for them to do? Merge. Okay, now to add something to that. And you know what, maybe go to your notes for this rather than leaving on here. So let's just go to starting off our notes for the day. Yeah, and I'll come back to this. So again, just for repetition's sake, so scale or quantity, and then cost per unit. Those are our what right there? No, right here. More specifically, what is that right there? What kind of startup costs? The 0 gives you a hint. Indivisible set of costs. So as we're going down to Again, sorry to repeat, but what's this right here, this point right here? MES, right? Minimum efficient scale. You got two companies. Company A and B. What were the two companies I told you about last class? Yeah, very good. And those two companies, they're not the same company, right? They're competitors, but they realized combining forces allowed them to exploit economies of scale. Just trying to get you the language that business uses. If you start reading the Wall Street Journal, which is business majors, if you're a business major, I think you should, and they've got a cheap option for students, or I'll give you my login. Actually belongs to my sister-in-law. It's a really important periodical to read for business majors, and they talk in this language. So if you've got these two companies, they might merge. But a merger isn't just a rubber stamp. A merger has to go through the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission. There are two S's in commission? Yeah, okay. I'm dyslexic and I'm open about that. So the Federal Trade Commission has to look at whether or not these mergers are in the public interest. Now, generally what they do is they do a very analytical job of trying to figure out whether these two companies are what. What don't they want, do you think?
They don't want to.
Yeah, they don't want a monopoly. Very good. And so what would, if these two companies were perfect what? Well, if they were perfect substitutes, right? And they had large market share and they wanted to merge, then you're creating a monopoly. So what are they looking at to determine substitutability? What's that coefficient? And we had it on the test where you had to calculate. Very nice, yeah. They have to look at the cross price elasticity and see whether or not it was what? Positive or negative? It's positive, right? The price of one, the quantity of the other. So when the price goes up of one, the quantity of the other. Let's do this. Let's review. Percentage change, quantity of X, percentage change, price of Y. If this goes up and people buy more of the opposite, that tells you they're substitutes. And so they're looking for high positive coefficient here. Editorial or factual commentary, you take it as what you might do. Donald Trump has a different way of dealing with things. I don't know if you know that on our inauguration, all the big tech people, all the big companies paid money into his inauguration. He's building a big ballroom during a government shutdown with people not getting their editorial, not getting their food stamps. And big companies are donating millions of dollars secretly to his ballroom. What are they trying to do? Well, they know that Donald Trump has a weakness, and it's flattery and favors. And they know when he's flattered and favored, he will bend his will towards something. Sorry, that's just a reality that we know about him, or at least it's my editorial commentary on that. And so what are we seeing big companies do? We're seeing them give a lot of money to Donald Trump so that, what do you think? Yeah, so he'll tell FTC, allow that merger. We have evidence of this. CBS News does 60 Minutes. 60 Minutes is a famous news program old people watch on Sundays. And it had an interview with Kamala Harris that they edited a little bit. And it made her look better. And I don't know details about this, but sometimes they edit them. And so Donald Trump sued CBS and they paid him $16 million. Why did they settle? Because they edit everything. They settled because they have a merger in front of him. And so they just did an interview on 60 Minutes of Donald Trump with 60 Minutes. You know what they did? They edited it heavily. And so 60 Minutes, thank you for doing something right. They put out two interviews. The one they edited and put on TV, and then the full one where you see some problems in his answers and in his demeanor. So, but the bigger point is that these companies are paying lots of money to this administration and to this man. So hopefully they can bypass the FTC. So agree or disagree with that, that's my editorial commentary, and much of it is based on facts as I know them. So last night, let me just further go politics. Last night we had, I think, a bit of a rebuke, meaning elections that showed that Americans in New Jersey, New York, and Virginia and California think maybe he's exercising too much power, that he's going too far. And whether or not you agree with me or disagree with me, the margins of some of those elections were really large. In Virginia, the Republican governor had won in the previous election by, someone correct me, but something like 1 or 2%. This time the Democrat won by, I think, 12 or more percent. So there's a shift. People don't, they think he's going too far on some things, and let you think about what that might be. So another message around all of this, while he might be different and while he might be, some might say, corrupt around these kinds of issues, we live in a democracy. And being an old person who's seen our democracy work over time, we go like this. We switch from one side to the other. And I believe both sides go too far. Under Obama in 2008, he had the House, the Senate, and basically the Supreme Court. And they pushed, and you know, I'm a Democrat, so I agree with these things, but they pushed too hard, I think, for the general public on trans rights, on gay marriage, and on healthcare reform through Obamacare. And so my point being that the next election, the Republicans swept and took control of both houses. Now, in this case, Donald Trump, many people feel like he's going too far in his power around the government, around immigration raids. And so this election, while it wasn't the midterm, when we get to the midterm next year, 2000, was it next year? Yeah, next year, when the House and Senate are up for re-election, I see the same kind of correction taking place. And so just a lesson on being a political adult that some of my friends don't have. They get really worked up and emotional. Just know, wait a couple of years and it swings too far, because people are the same. When they have a lot of power, when you're the president and you're in control of the House and the Senate and the Supreme Court, it goes to your head and you go too far. And I believe Obama moved too quickly on things I agree with, but he moved too quickly. And now Trump's doing the same and we kind of equal out. So there's a broader discussion around what's going on here. Any thoughts, questions, commentary? Anyone want to yell at me? Okay, I try to be balanced. So if you don't think I'm being balanced, talk to me. All right, beautiful. Okay, the next thing on this. Okay, so I want to show you some videos that I'm not going to, I shall show you those later. Just write down Amazon. Who uses it? I mean, why do we use it? Why do we use Amazon? Quick, convenient, cheap. Why is it cheap? Scale, right? Amazon has huge economies of scale. They lease their own jets to transport packages across the country. They lease their own trucks. They're their own transportation system. They are what we call pretty vertically integrated, meaning they own things from the product being developed all the way to its delivery to your door. Right, and then furthermore, where they don't own the stage of production and the making of the product, they squeeze their providers. So if you can sell your goods, so if you want to start a business and you want to start selling on Amazon, great, it's a great way to sell your product, right? You're open to a gigantic market. Problem, Amazon looks at your sales and it gets the data on, oh wait, they're producing something that's really popular. Then what does Amazon do? Yep. They find a supplier for that, probably overseas, who can produce a lot at scale at a lower price, and they run those people out of business. So they bait and switch. Yeah. Now, okay, I'm going to continue this. What? It's going to make us all feel a little shame for Amazon, but Amazon's changed the game, because now when I go to the store, if it exists, right, we see Main Street with fewer and fewer businesses because we're all going online. My drugstore, Rite Aid here in town, it's out of business now. Last time I went there to get some duct tape, I don't know if you've ever been in the market for duct tape. I put it on these things for when I'm backpacking for calluses. Anyhow, when I was in the market for duct tape, one roll of duct tape, over $10. What's it on Amazon? Yeah, 2 max. And so what does that make me do? Okay, it makes me go back to Amazon. So they run everybody else out of business. And so one day they're going to have pretty large market share. And do you trust a company with enormous market share to keep their prices low? Yeah, I certainly don't. Now, here's another reason to maybe hate Bezos a little bit. He's incredibly smart. He figured out early on, Amazon was just about selling books in 1999. That's all it did was sell books. Then he realized they could sell more things. And then he realized, wait a minute, with this internet, we can change the game completely. People will buy online. We can exploit economies of scale and economies of scope, if we remember what those are. He called in investors. Listen, I got this great idea. We're going to change everything. And he got these investors to fund Amazon. Amazon ran at a loss for 20 years. So think about that. Any industry you could go into, imagine you being in an industry and somebody comes in as your competitor and sells products at below cost. How are you going to compete? But you can't because you're a small guy and you don't have big investors. Right? He told investors straight up, you will lose money with me for 20 years. But if you keep that money coming, we will basically run out the competition and then we will be dominant in that market. And so brilliant, but also scary to me if that's now allowed, that you can, because that's actually illegal. There are laws saying you can't sell below cost. But when he runs losses for 20 years, that means he can enter into any industry with the right backing of investors, sell below cost, and run out any small competitors. And then you have one big giant company. Again, would you trust that company, especially the way they got there? And again, I'm a hypocrite. I use Amazon. But Amazon's kind of made us all hypocrites because it's very difficult to find these goods elsewhere at a decent price. Any questions, any thoughts on it? Did you know that about Amazon and how it, yeah, you did, I think. Yeah. Hmm?
I know about a little bit, not this much.
Right. So if you're interested in that and you want to get mad at yourself and the rest of us who use Amazon, I will show you a link here. So if you go to chapter 7, I'd really recommend to any of you who are business majors that you watch this video. It's about 2 hours long. It's about Jeff Bezos and the reign and rise of Jeff Bezos. And then there are articles here around that, 3 articles around the resistance to what he's doing. Okay. Hmm?
There are videos. Fine. So you have to be to get some progress. So because if you are investor and okay, no, don't worry, it may be taking there you can get profit.
Right. Well, I mean, if you have a 20-year time frame with enough money to sell something below cost, you're going to get rid of all your competition.
So you have the idea when he started.
Yes, he had that idea. This video has interviews about that process where he did that. Hmm.
Selling those, but I know just now in the small business that I didn't know that all time.
That's what created their dominance. And then small business, remember the other story is they'll watch you selling on Amazon. And then if you're successful, they'll take over your product. So beware. All right. Now coming back to this, let's finish this here. An X inefficiency is when costs are what? Here. Yeah, unnecessary. Oh, thank you. Unnecessary or higher than they could be. I would prefer the answer higher than they could be. So notice here, at this quantity, here's what your cost could be, yet they're up here. And so higher than they.
I'll put the level that they start on.
No. It's unnecessary costs. But then remember, we got smart, dumb, and regulated monopoly. So here I want you to write smart, where they're paying for amenities to attract and retain talent. Make sure you have that. For A, smart. Spending money on things to attract and retain talent. Remember, this is tech. Dumb, you use your best example of dumb, right? Buying things that you don't need, overpaying.
Oh, can you repeat that example for the smart one?
Smart one is spending on things to attract and retain talent. And then remember regulated monopoly, they're regulated on a cost plus basis. And so what is it your interest to do if you're regulated on a cost plus basis? Increase cost, because that'll increase your profit. So make sure to have some details there. Don't just write cost plus basis, right? What that means, they're regulated on a cost plus basis so that if they have higher costs, they're guaranteed a higher profit. Again?
They need to spend much Larry's in space, that's the goal.
As he did, yeah. Now, was that smart, dumb, or regulated monopoly?
What was that?
I mean, which of those three would that be that he spent money on that? I think that's just a result of him gaining this market power in a devious way. Hmm? Would it? Would it? Right? Because did he gain by, so what we're talking about is Jeff Bezos sending up a bunch of celebrities in his strangely shaped rocket. Did that generate enough publicity to make it worthwhile for him? Maybe, right? Maybe that was a smart expenditure. Right, those, yeah. I don't know, some of us had other hopes about that plan. All right, so now, let us do something on our notes that'll get us back to that backside of the handout. And that is understanding where we're headed, and where we're headed is looking at a bunch of different market structures. So what I want you to draw is a continuum, and I'll do it this, where you have and let's try to come back to this. And so try to divide it into 4 sections. I'm going to do my best to do that neatly. And leave this in your notes as something to come back to. So like one section here that we'll get into. Try to do it more equal than I just did.
We're gonna need a whole sheet.
Yeah. On one end of the spectrum is more competition, on the other is less competition. And this is an outline of where we're going through the rest of the semester. And so we're going to start today to look at the characteristics of perfect competition. We looked at some of the math last class, but not the characteristics of this market. Remember what this is, and I've mentioned it just once. These are mining companies, drilling companies, and farmers. I'm going to put farmer ranchers. Don't want to leave the ranchers out. They all make a commodity Commodity just simply means a standard product that doesn't have any things that make it differentiated, that somehow brand it or make it any different than what anybody else sells. So if you're a farmer farming tomatoes, a certain variety of tomatoes, you all farm that variety of tomatoes. In this valley, people who farm almonds or almonds, same variety of almonds, they make the same product. Walnuts also in this valley, long grain brown rice also in this valley. These are all commodities and they all make the exact same thing. So they're all making a standardized product. With no difference between each one. Now, given that that's the case, we've got a dashboard. If you're a business major, I recommend looking at this dashboard. I've got one student who gets up at 4 a.m., but he works the markets a lot to look at this data and watch Bloomberg. So I take you here, you're going to see kind of the dashboard if it's going to load. There we go. Right here, commodities. If you go to the Wall Street Journal, Finance and Markets, Market Data Home, you can come here and notice what we're looking at here. Wheat and corn, right? Farmers, copper, silver, gold, miners, crude oil, Brent crude oil, natural gas, unleaded gas. These are drillers. These are refiners. Let's forget about that. But all of these are set on a world market price. And if we sit here and watch this, have you seen a change yet in any of these prices?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's one on unleaded gasoline. No one producer of any of these commodities has any control in the price. There is a world, so you might write this down. There's a world market price for their commodity. They have no control over it. If you know farmers, farmers tend to be conservative financially. They tend to be conservative financially, meaning they have money saved. They have revenue, they have resources saved. Why? Because they know the market for their good goes up and down. The price is very, very volatile. I know people in the walnut business here who are now cleaning up, making millions, losing millions just 2 years ago. So what does it make sense to do? To have a large reserve for those fluctuating prices. And I think if you're watching this, you're seeing a lot of fluctuation. They have no control over it. So the point being, anyone in any of these industries can go from running great profits to great losses. And they have no control over that price that they're having to deal with. That's a key characteristic of perfect competition. Yeah, please.
Why does the world market set the price fees?
Because there are, as I was about to write down, there are so many sellers, right? The supply curve is so full of people around the world who make all of these things. No one seller can control the market. If I grow rice in this valley, even if I'm one of the big families here, I have no control over the price of rice because people in China, Japan, other states are growing rice. And so the market is set. This market here is, these are futures right here, meaning you're writing a contract to take delivery of that commodity in the future. These are all determined in a market in Chicago called the Chicago Merc or Mercantile Exchange. They don't control that. Buyers and sellers control that. And so people who are going to take delivery of this are putting in orders, and especially like for wheat futures or corn futures, like cornflakes, Kellogg is likely in that market bidding for corn in the future to maintain a predictable cost for their input. Did I answer your question? I think I went a little bit further. Yeah.
You said that would be considered perfect competition.
This is perfect competition. Yeah. And so the next thing to write down is that there are a very large number of buyers and sellers. Again, getting to your point, to your question, very large number of buyers, sellers, therefore no one has control over that market. Obviously, as we get to less competition, that changes. So very large number of buyers and sellers. Now, do any of us take delivery of a bushel of wheat? Or any of us in that market? Is the average person in the market for any of these commodities? No, they are inputs for another industry, which brings me here to monopolistic competition. Monopolistic competition, these people make differentiated products. Differentiation means they're going to take that corn and make cornflakes and then put their brand on it. They're going to take that corn and they're going to make the off brand of cornflakes and put their label on it. So these are the people who are using the inputs from this, among other industries. Next thing here, what do I want to say? So because there are a very large number of buyers and sellers, the seller has no control over the price. Again, this is the importance of reading chapter 8 next after you've gone over this, right? So you can get another way of looking at these things. So if this is the case, that being the case, and do something like this. Those 3 dots in a triangle mean therefore in math speak. Therefore, the price equals the demand curve. Because the demand curve is perfectly, if you're all making the same thing and you have billions of substitutes, what does that mean? More inelastic or elastic? Yeah, and in this case, perfectly elastic. And I'll show you graphically what that means in a second. And this also means that price, as I wrote last class, is equal to marginal revenue. The last thing to know is it's easy to enter and exit the industry. I drive a lot now through the valley since I live in the Bay Area coming up here. And I see, I don't know if you see in the fields, if you spend time in the valley in the agricultural areas, you see areas where trees are being ripped up in large plots. Why are they doing that? Because they're leaving one market going to another. It also could be they're replanting the trees because they're no longer as fruitful, I'll say. But there are also times when I know a buddy who grows grew prunes up in Los Molinos. Then prunes became too expensive to process because you've got to dry them. You had to dry them with diesel, and diesel was very expensive at the time. So what did he do? He tore out all his prunes and put in walnuts. And so the point being, in this kind of industry, there you have these fluctuating prices. And so at times you're going to see, and I see all the time in the valley here, people tearing out their walnuts because right now they are making money, but a while back they weren't, tearing them out to put in another crop. So people are changing what crops they're growing. Furthermore, if you got a plot of land that's fallow, that's not being used, and is still fertile, and you now know that walnut prices are high, what might you do? Lease it out, or you might plant some walnuts on them. Although there's no guarantee what the price will be once they get is fruitful. I don't know the word there that I should use in agriculture to give out their crop. Bountiful. Yeah, looking for another word. Anyhow, so these are our basic market characteristics. Let's now take this. Let's move on to another page so I can get you some understanding of some of these things in a deeper way. So here we're gonna do 2 graphs. This is all perfect competition. Here is the industry. in the industry for rice, walnuts, almonds, gold, oil, there are many, many sellers, thousands, hundreds of thousands, tens of thousands, depending on the industry. And so this industry is every single supplier of this good, of this commodity, I should say. And demand is all the demand throughout society. And again, here, what kind of price was that I showed you? The Wall Street Journal price was the world market price, right? So you're not just looking at American supply and demand. You're looking in these markets for the supply of gold worldwide and the demand for gold worldwide. So you are a slave to that market, right? You have no control because you're just one player as a supplier, as a driller, miner, or farmer or rancher. So here, this market sets the price. Let's just write again, firm has no control. What I'm going to show you now is basically where we're going. So on this here, what we're diagramming is what happens. Well, if it's a world market price, they have to take that price. Hold on, let's go back over here. Firms are price takers. They have no control. Now, if I come back over here, let's add monopoly, just so I can.
You said price is what?
They're price takers.
Okay.
Just to give you an example, if we go to the far for pure monopoly, what do you think they are? If these guys, pardon me? Oh, sorry. If we go to the far right there for less competition to a monopoly, it's perfect competition of price takers. What do you think is happening here? Yeah, the price makers. We say makers, setters, givers, that all works. Why? They control the market. Okay. Back to this. So this firm, this is what we call a representative firm. Why is it representative? Because there are thousands of firms. And they must take this price. So right there is our P1. Now just draw a straight, flat line. Up here, we're going to be putting a $sign. And what that represents is we're going to be graphing both revenue and costs. If we're graphing both revenue and costs, what can we determine? Yeah, profit or loss, right? So we're getting to that point now. And then here's quantity. Take this price. Okay, now write this, but then I'm going to explain it another way, MR1. I'll bring that back up, but I want to illustrate something. And I'm gonna be kind of Sesame Street about this, meaning go over it and over it and over it in a way that'll make it really apparent to you. If I'm selling, and damn if this thing changes while I'm giving this example, so let's assume corn futures are $3.50, whatever it is a bushel, okay, let's just leave it right there, stop looking at it, $3.50, if I sell one bushel, how much do I get? $3.50, if I sell a second bushel, how much do I get? For that next one, how much do I get? $3.50, how much for the 1,001st? $3.50, how about 1,000,001? So each one that I sell, I'm gonna get $3.50. What does marginal mean? One additional unit. So anytime you sell one additional unit, you sell it at $3.50. Therefore, the marginal revenue, the revenue you get for selling one more item is good Sesame Street episode right there. So the price is equal to. Yeah, no, but the symbol. Price is equal to, if you sell each new item at $3.50, the price is also marginal revenue, right? Marginal revenue is, what do you get marginally? Marginally means one more unit. What's the revenue you get for one more unit? And that is? No, $3.50, but you get it, it's marginal revenue. All right, back to the graph here. So here's where we're going to get to, if you could, please, thanks. So you've drawn the average total cost curve before on these previous cost graphs. If you remember, it had a U shape to it. Let's do that and have it have a small point of tangency right along this line here. So just go like this. Make it almost like a V, a tiny point of tangency, and then back up. We call this on the other side, right? There's our average total cost curve. And then one comes up to the minimum point. Yeah, right here, the marginal cost. So all we're doing now is showing something here and adding these. Where did that marginal cost curve come up through ATC? Can you characterize what this point is? Yeah, it's minimum point. It's lowest possible costs. So do this. Here's marginal cost coming up. And here's what's key when you draw this or interpret it. It needs to come up through that minimum point at an angle. There is our marginal costs. There is our average total costs. Okay. Before I go further on this is also the demand curve. That means for the firm, the demand for their product is perfectly what? It's perfectly elastic. Why? Inelastic means you have no or few or substitutes, right? Gasoline is highly inelastic because we don't have as many substitutes. Here, you're growing rice and you're one firm growing rice. You got lots of other people growing rice as well. Furthermore, I used to teach and work in Colusa, and Colusa is a big rice growing town. And if you're in a rice growing town or any commodity based town, and you try to sell your product below the world market price, what are the people going to feel about? Your neighbors, your friends, your church, what are they going to threaten? And you're kind of breaking the rules there. You don't need to be taking business like that. And if you sell it higher, who's going to buy it from them? Because there's a world market price, right? So that's why this demand is perfectly elastic there from the viewpoint of the single seller in a market with thousands or tens of thousands of producers. Now, what's key here is that the way we get our quantity that is maximizing profits or minimizing our losses. Now, why minimizing losses? Because in agriculture or any of these fields, the price, remember, is volatile. And so there's some years you make money and there's some years you lose money. And losing money doesn't necessarily mean you leave the industry. And how do we get this? This comes from equalizing marginal revenue with marginal cost. Where these two places meet, you're going to see this mathematically. You will always find the place where they're earning the most revenue at the least possible cost, so they have the highest possible profits. One last thing before we get to the math. Where MC and MR meet, right? MC and MR. So there's our point. Let's make a real big deal about this. So there's our quantity. What is P times Q? We did this first day. Yeah, very good. So P times Q equals total revenue. Now notice this, and we did this mathematically last class. Q times ATC. Q times ATC equals total costs. So follow along with me visually here. Q right up to ATC and over, I need to put a C1 right there, designating this. Q times ATC is their total costs. Q times the price is their total revenue. Do you see how this square here, this rectangle represents what? What two things? Yeah, so this is total cost and total revenue, and they're equal to one another. What does that mean about your profit? Because profit, let's add this, profit equals total revenue minus total cost. And in this case, the profit is 0. Okay. Now here's the key thing. It's the difference between your accounting class and economics. Economics includes opportunity cost. Let me give you an example of opportunity cost that I was working on mathematically last night. I could retire and I could make a nice amount of money, but not as much money as I make right now in this job. I could retire, I could take that money and I could work another job and maybe make more money than I'm making here. So what is the opportunity cost for me to continue to teach? Yeah, the money I could be making elsewhere. So no, I've got this decision to make. Do I value this and should I stay here? Or should I just take their money, right? That it's just coming to me if I quit and go do something else and then possibly make more, right? So I'm trying to figure out that opportunity cost because I got buddies who are teachers who are going to give me a really hard time if I retire early saying you're giving away money. I'm like, no, you don't understand opportunity cost because there's an opportunity cost of not retiring now. I say that to get you to this. All in our total costs here, we're including the entrepreneur's value of themselves. We're including the salary that they want. And so if all of your costs are being paid and you're being paid the salary you want, are you happy? I guess not. Maybe you want more than the salary you want, but my point being this, when we are at 0, we call this a normal profit. We also call this the long run equilibrium. We're always going to come back to this. Always in this industry, we'll come back to everyone making just enough to pay all their bills and to get paid exactly what they think they believe they deserve. You see the importance of reading the chapter after today? Okay, now another part of this. You own land in the valley and it's fallow, it's not being farmed right now. And you see your neighbor who's growing petunia, well, let's go with corn. Growing corn, and you see your neighbor now's got a new boat Now it's got a new sports car. Now it's got a new RV and they're growing corn. Are they earning just a normal profit? The point here is when you start to earn an economic profit, when it's higher than zero, you're gonna see your neighbor get all this stuff and you've got land fallow. What should you do? So he or she is growing corn and getting vacation houses, boats, sports cars, etc. What should you plant on your, you should plant corn, right? And then if you plant corn, there's more supply in the market. So what's gonna happen to the price? Go lower. So what happens, and I'm not gonna get into that beyond just this description, is this is a very dynamic market. And economists love this market because it's always coming back to the proprietor, to the farmer, driller, miner, making exactly what they think they deserve, no more. Therefore, the price that we have to pay is the most competitive, lowest price. We wish, and we have a fetish for perfect competition. We wish everything was perfectly competitive because everybody wins. The proprietor gets exactly what they think they deserve, and we as consumers get the lowest possible price. The problem that happens, and you don't have to write anything here, is as we move more and more in this direction, we get more and more control by fewer companies, and the price tends to go up, right? Because more and more of the resources are going to the business owner. All right, we will come back to this. That's good, yeah.
So basically, you would consider the break even as a normal profit?
Yeah, break even is what we call normal profit because the entrepreneur, the farmer, making exactly what he or she believes they deserve. All right, where's my fill out one? So do you all have? So here's the data. If you weren't here last class, fill in that data. And then what we're going to use. Sorry to bore you. Are those formulas I had somewhere? I'll rewrite it. Make sure in your notes you have this formula. What I want you to do is, I want you to answer 3 A and B, 4 A and B, 5 A and B, 6 A and B. Let me go through one with you to get started. I'll give you a second to write down these formula and that data, and then I'll review. So what did I say this piece of paper was? Yeah, this is exactly how your final is going to look. It's just going to be different data. So no surprises, it's going to be exactly this. We're going to practice over and over in class on this so you can nail the final. Get started if you want. I'm just going to wait a second for people to catch up who weren't here last class and then go over 3. If you'd like, get started on doing 3, 4, 5, and 6, but just parts A and B. Businesses like to hire economics majors because they're very good analytic thinkers. They can create a model to understand complex reality, put that into numeric representations, and then make predictions about the future. There's my sales pitch for economics. If any of this is interesting to you, follow it because it's a lucrative career. And it's not that you become an economist. I know ex-students who are in crypto, who are in intelligence, who are in all kinds of different industries, but it's very valued because you're able to analyze complex situations. And is the world getting less complex or more? Yeah, I would think a lot more complex. And so it's a very valued skill. I will give you most of the formulas, but this you have to know. So this you're gonna have to memorize. Yeah,
Well, what's that symbol mean?
What's
For 1 and 2?
so if price is greater than or equal to average variable cost, go to number 2. If not, quantity equals 0. And we get our quantity where marginal revenue is closest to, but higher than marginal cost. All right, so let's do this first one together. I think everyone's ready. Everyone ready? Rory, ready?
Yep.
We get out this thing. All right. The price is 84. Price is 84. What's the first thing I have to do? Yeah, so here, let me make a little bit more of this. So is 84 greater than average variable cost at any point? Is 84 greater? Yes. Now, why is that important? Remember, your fixed costs are things like insurance, rent, mortgage payments, payments on loans. Your variable costs are things like lights, utilities, and not really good looking men, but thanks for laughing. Salaries, thank you, very good, very good. So if you can't afford your or salaries, can you stay in business? No, so we call this the shutdown decision. So if you can't cover your variable costs, you can't keep the lights on, you can't pay your workers, you're out of business. But if you can pay them, even if you're making a loss, as we're gonna see here, what do we know about the nature of these prices in these industries? They're going up and down, they're very volatile. And so you might run a loss for a little while, at least you can keep the lights on, at least you can have the power, at least you can pay your workers for the day when the price goes back up, because it inevitably will in all of these industries. So have we met this? At $84, yes, so we go to number 2. Now, the key thing to remember here is that in perfect competition, the price is the marginal revenue. What was it, corn? How much for the first bushel? How much for the 137th bushel? Right, so for each new one, the marginal revenue is $3.50. So in this case, how much for the first, whatever we're talking about here? 84, how much for the 137th? So that's our marginal revenue. So we need to remember that the price is always the marginal revenue as they're selling this commodity at that price. We take this and we go to marginal cost and we find the best fits. Where the closest, where at least marginal revenue is exceeding marginal cost. So look that over to figure out which is the number.
So this 84 and compared with the line of the marginal cost.
Yes,
Okay.
you're comparing this, trying to find the closest fit. Yeah,
You want it to be so you want it to be the closest number.
So the
not
closest-
Bigger than.
yeah, not, it needs to be at least closest and it larger, and it also needs to be the highest number. So if there are 2 places, notice, you could do at 50, you could do at 60, you want the closest fit, so you're obviously gonna go to 108. Well, 108, your costs would be exceeded, right? You want your marginal revenue to exceed your costs. Right, so here's your marginal revenue. So you want it not to be 108, because then your marginal costs are exceeding your marginal revenue. So you would go to this point, yeah, closest without being, your cost being higher. So our quantity is 4. Do we see that? Questions? Okay, so our quantity is 4. Now we can do the rest of the math. Price times quantity is 4 times what? 84. Go ahead and use your phones as calculators, your calculators as calculators. Anybody ski Shasta? Anybody ski Shasta? Nobody? I just got a free lift ticket for this year. Or free season pass, because I broke my arm there last year. My first day of the season. Go call them. They just sent me a text.
All they did was give us a bunch of bills.
Well, I got lots of bills, but at least I got a free season pass.
Hey, that's the.
I don't know, dude. Talk to me after I come back from my first ski trip, 'cause I need to go back to where I broke my bone. And we'll see how that works out. Okay, so 8 times 84 is our total revenue. Notice here, I could do one of two things. I could do quantity times ATC at 4, or I could just look at total cost. Right, so at 4, my total cost is, yeah, 592, so that's 592. My total cost. Now what do I do? This. All right, I take my total revenue, 33.6, and subtract my total costs.
Maybe like 56.
256 precisely. Now, negative 256.
I'm sorry, where did the 592 come in?
Ah, so look up here, look up there.
Alright,
So at 4,
yeah,
my total costs are right there, right? Those are my total
okay.
costs, right? And so what would I write here? How much does this firm produce? 4. And then just circle loss. How much? 256. All right, now do 4, 5, and 6. I'll come around and help. And please help each other. When what's at 0? Ah, normal profit. Yeah. Very good.
You're welcome today.
Be right back.
It's not very good. Also, is we just need to.
Yeah.
Which one?
Oh, yeah. I did one.
Ah, so about this. On number 6, don't forget step 1. We'll try to figure out C and D for each, given what I've talked about. Let's keep this going. Get ahead and challenge it. Yeah.
What do you want to write that?
It's up arrow, down arrow.
That's all you want?
Yeah. Same with you, Isaac, if you're there. What happens in C and D? Yeah.
It wouldn't slow stay, but it would just fluctuate.
What did I call that point? What, in what term? Yeah, so what does that mean?
That it is at its current peak.
Boom. No change, yeah. Very, very careful on number 6.
Good. Based on that, should be. Yeah. Wait, you know what?
Up to you, the same.
And and you apply it on the brands of the school, right? So we have found,
Kind of the opposite motivation for the long side. Okay, let's go through 4 together. I want you to finish 5 and 6 by next class if you haven't, okay? Everyone, and those online, finish all of them. So on 4, the price is 140. How much is it for the 5th item at 140? 140, how about the 6th? Okay, so that makes this also not just the price, but it's marginal revenue, right? The price is our marginal revenue for each new one we sell. For each marginal addition, marginal means addition of 1, we get that amount of money. Now, the first thing we need to do is see if 140 is greater than any of these. And the answer is yes. So we go to 2. Then we find where this marginal revenue best fits marginal cost. We get a nice tight fit, don't we? See that right there? Where they're perfectly equal. And so that's 6 is our quantity. 6 times 140 is 840. Notice right here at 6, our total costs are also 840. So if we subtract 840 from 840, we get 0. But there's something you need to write other than 0. 0 is a normal profit. Are the entrepreneurs happy? Yes. Are they getting new boats, vacation homes, and sports cars? No, because that would mean they would be earning an economic profit. More on that next class. Make sure, again, everyone online and here, 3, 4, 5, 6, A and B before next class. Have a great weekend. And I'll be around here to answer questions for a few more minutes.